The Jordan Show on YouTube.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. Ready for a deep dive into some serious tech history?
Always up for a good tech history deep dive.
Well, today we are going to be exploring the world of HP alumni.
Fascinating group.
It really is. And we are going to uncover how HP's culture, what they called the HP way, really shaped the future of technology.
We use so much technology every day that was influenced by HP alumni.
I know, right? And speaking of HP alumni, you have probably heard of the HP Mafia.
Oh yeah, not in like a mobster kind of way.
Of course not. It's just a term used to describe this huge network of ex-HP employees who went out to do some pretty amazing things.
Amazing is an understatement, I think. World-changing, really.
That's a good point. But before we get into all that, I think it is important to remember that Hewlett-Packard wasn't just any company.
It wasn't.
It was a breeding ground for a very specific type of innovator.
Yeah, and you can really see the impact of HP's culture on these people.
I totally agree. But get this, HP almost missed out on one of tech's biggest revolutions.
I wonder what you are thinking of.
I'm talking about Steve Wozniak offering them the Apple I prototype.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, while he was working there.
Wow. It seems unbelievable now knowing how the personal computer changed everything.
Right. So knowing that, why do you think HP passed on it?
Well, back then, HP was doing very well with mini computers and scientific instruments.
So they were already successful.
Very successful.
Okay, but they were still a tech company.
True.
So passing on the Apple, I must have seemed like a good idea to them at the time.
The personal computer market probably seemed so niche back then, almost like a toy compared to their core business.
That makes sense.
Plus, you have to consider the HP way and its emphasis on decentralization.
I've read about that.
Each HP division had a lot of autonomy.
Interesting. So you're saying that the decision to pass on the Apple, I was likely made at a lower level.
Yeah, probably not some big CEO making a top-down decision.
So even though they missed this huge opportunity, Wozniak still took the lessons of the HP way to Apple with him.
Oh, absolutely.
And those lessons weren't just some abstract values they put on a poster.
No, not at all. They were ingrained in how HP operated, their whole approach to business.
Can you give me an example?
Sure, take collaboration, for example. They had an open office layout, no cubicles.
Even for the execs?
Even the execs, it was all about encouraging communication and bouncing ideas off each other.
Interesting. I imagine that led to a lot of cross-team collaboration.
It did. It was built into their work style. And they had this management by walking around leadership style.
What does that mean?
The leaders were encouraged to be very accessible, very hands-on.
I like that.
They were very involved in the day-to-day workings of the company.
That's very different from a lot of companies today. So they didn't just tell people to collaborate.
No.
They set up their whole environment to facilitate it.
Exactly. And that wasn't the only value they emphasized.
What else was there?
A huge one was individual respect.
How did they show that?
In a lot of ways. They were known for their profit-sharing programs and really great benefits.
So they treated their employees well.
They treated them like partners, which created a lot of loyalty.
And probably a sense of ownership too, right?
Right. And I think that's how the HP way created so many successful people.
So it was not just by chance.
No, it was a very calculated and deliberate approach to creating this innovative culture.
This is starting to make a lot more sense now.
And we're just scratching the surface.
It feels like we are.
The impact of this culture spread far beyond HP itself.
Give me an example of that.
Look at Tom Perkins, another HP alum.
What did he do?
He joined the company in the 60s, right when silicon transistors were replacing vacuum tubes.
So he was right there at the beginning.
He saw firsthand how that tech was going to change the world.
Wow, so his time at HP gave him like a front row seat to the birth of Silicon Valley.
More like a driver's seat.
How so?
Well, he went on to co-found Kleiner Perkins.
Isn't that one of the most influential venture capital firms ever?
It is. They invested in giants like Google, Amazon, Genentech.
I can't imagine those companies existing without that early support.
They probably wouldn't.
It's amazing how these big companies all connect back to the HP way.
It is fascinating how this one company had such a huge impact.
But Perkins was more on the business side.
No, he was.
So did he pick up any of the technical stuff from HP's culture?
He did. Perkins was a big believer that a deep understanding of technology was essential, even if you weren't an engineer.
Smart.
He said that HP taught him that.
I can see why.
Because to make the right investments, you have to grasp the potential of those innovations.
So money isn't enough.
It's not enough to just have money to invest. You need vision.
So you're saying you need that dual focus on tech and business, which was
Yeah.
pure HP.
Exactly.
And Perkins took those lessons to the venture capital world.
Just like Wozniak did at Apple.
And in doing so, Perkins ended up shaping not just individual companies, but entire industries.
Right. But the HP way wasn't just about creating these big name tech guys, you know.
Oh, are you going to tell me about some of the lesser known HP alumni who went on to do great things?
Let's talk about Ann Bowers.
Don't recognize that name.
She might not be a household name,
Okay.
but her impact on company culture, first at Intel and then at Apple, was huge.
Wait, she worked at both Intel and Apple.
She did.
That's amazing.
She started at HP, where she learned the HP way in its early days.
Back when it was all about hardcore engineering.
Exactly.
So what does she do?
She went on to become Intel's first VP of HR.
Wow.
She played a critical role in building their company culture during a period of explosive growth.
That's a lot of responsibility.
It was. And then she did the same thing at Apple.
No way.
She shaped their approach to talent and leadership as they were on their way to becoming the iconic brand we know today.
So it's like she was spreading the HP way gospel to these massive companies.
That's a good way to put it.
It's like HP was this secret leadership academy, just producing people who would go on to shape industries.
You're not wrong. And it's not just her and the few people we've talked about.
Oh, there's more.
There are so many more examples. Eric Benamou, who led 3Com and Palm.
Those were big deals back in the early days of mobile computing.
And then there's Dick Hackborn,
Who is that?
the father of the printer
The
industry.
father of the printer industry. I mean, that sounds impressive, but what did he actually do?
Well, he led the team at HP that created the first thermal inkjet printer.
And that was revolutionary, wasn't it?
It was a game changer. It made printing accessible to everybody.
So printers weren't just for businesses and universities anymore.
Exactly.
They were in homes all across the world.
Exactly. And it was Hackborn's vision that made that happen. He understood that innovation wasn't just about the tech.
Okay.
It was about making it useful and affordable to everybody.
So even printers have their roots in the HP way.
You got it. It's incredible the impact of just one company's culture.
It really is.
But it's not just about people who actually worked at HP.
Oh, what do you mean?
The HP way inspired a lot of people who had never even stepped foot in an HP office.
Give me an example.
Think about Mark Andreessen. He was the co-founder of Netscape and later founded the venture capital firm Andreessen Horowitz.
Oh, wow, yeah.
He credited HP's culture as a major inspiration.
So you're saying it's not just about who worked at HP.
Right.
It's also about who was watching what HP was doing and learning from their approach.
Exactly. And their influence wasn't limited to just tech either.
Really?
HP alumni have made a difference in tons of fields: healthcare, finance, you name it.
That's incredible. So what you're saying is that HP didn't just build products, they built people.
They built people who knew how to lead and innovate. And they did it across multiple different fields.
So the real legacy of HP isn't their products, it's the people.
That's exactly right.
But what made them so good at producing these talented people?
That is a great question.
What were the elements of the HP way that created this breeding ground for innovation?
Interesting question. Well, the HP way wasn't just this one, static thing. It changed over time.
It evolved.
Yeah, it evolved alongside the entire tech industry, really.
So back when HP first started, their culture was all about hardcore engineering.
Right. Pushing the limits of what was possible with electronics.
But as technology developed and became more consumer focused, HP's culture had to change with it.
It did, and that's one of the really fascinating things about the HP way. It wasn't some rigid set of rules.
Okay.
It was more of a philosophy,
That they could adapt as needed.
Exactly. As HP moved into things like personal computers and calculators, their focus on respect and collaboration became even more important.
Because now they were building products for the average person.
Exactly. Not just for scientists and engineers.
So they had to start focusing on user needs.
Right. They had to design intuitive interfaces, make things that were powerful but also easy to use.
Products that anyone could use.
And that required a different kind of thinking.
A more collaborative approach.
The more human-centered approach, really.
I see. So the HP way provided this foundation.
It did.
But it was flexible enough to adapt as HP and the industry as a whole evolved.
Precisely. And that's a really important lesson for businesses today.
How so?
Well, building a strong culture isn't about making a bunch of rules.
It's more about the values of the company.
It's about establishing core values that inform decision making.
So those values are the guide.
A guide. You need that in such a constantly changing world.
I see. So HP wasn't just about technical brilliance.
Yeah.
They also focused on people and what people wanted.
Right.
But how did they put those ideas into practice?
Oh, they had all sorts of programs and initiatives.
Like what?
Well, they had this thing called the open door policy.
Okay.
And it meant any employee, anyone, could just walk right into any manager's office.
Even the CEO?
Even the CEO.
Yeah.
To share ideas, concerns, really anything.
That's pretty radical. I like it.
It was very forward thinking for the time. They also did these regular coffee talks.
I can see why they called them that.
They got people from different departments together
To just chat.
to mingle and share ideas.
So they were intentionally creating chances for cross-pollination.
Exactly. Not just waiting for it to happen on its own.
That's pretty smart.
It is. And they were all about empowering employees at every level, not just the top.
How did they do that?
Well, they used something called management by objective.
I am not familiar with that.
Well, basically it meant teams were given very clear goals,
I see.
but then they were given a ton of freedom in how they achieved them.
So they gave their employees a lot of freedom to work how they wanted to.
They did. And it really encouraged innovation and gave them a feeling of ownership over their work.
That's cool. But did that ever backfire?
Backfire.
Yeah, did giving people so much freedom ever cause problems?
Well, as with pretty much any system, there were challenges sometimes.
Like what?
Sometimes, different divisions would end up working on very similar projects.
Ah, so it led to duplicated work,
Yeah,
which wasted resources.
that makes sense. It seems like they had to balance autonomy with coordination.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think every company struggles with
To a
that,
certain extent, yeah.
regardless of how big they are or what industry they're in.
It's finding that sweet spot between freedom and efficiency.
You got it.
So we have talked about some of the main parts of the HP way,
We have.
and we've talked about how they put their ideas into action. But what does this all mean for us today?
What do you mean?
What can we learn from the success of HP and its alumni?
That's a good question. I think the biggest takeaway from all of this is that company culture really matters.
Okay.
It's not just some meaningless HR concept. It's a key driver of long-term success, innovation, and growth.
So you're saying that companies that invest in building a strong culture will thrive?
Exactly. And not just any culture, a strong culture, one that prioritizes people.
And encourages collaboration and embraces change.
Those companies will do well in the long run.
They will.
So it's not about just copying what HP did.
Right. You can't just copy and paste.
It's more about understanding the principles of the HP way
The principles behind it.
and then applying those principles to your own company's specific situation.
Exactly. Each company is different, so there's no one-size-fits-all approach here.
I see. That makes sense. But the HP story definitely gives us some insights into how to create a company environment where people feel valued,
Where people feel empowered and inspired.
and that leads to them doing their best work.
Right. It's like they found the secret formula for building a culture of innovation.
And their formula is still relevant today.
It really is. And remember, it's not just about innovating, it's also about great leadership.
Oh yeah, we talked about that.
Think of all those HP alumni who became leaders in so many different industries.
Right.
They weren't just smart engineers or business people.
They were leaders who understood how to motivate and inspire other people.
They were. So the HP way wasn't just about making amazing products.
It was about building great leaders.
You got it.
And that is something a lot of businesses today seem to miss.
I agree.
They focus so much on technical skills and specific industry knowledge.
Yeah.
But leadership is just as important.
If not more important.
Because at the end of the day, it's people who drive innovation.
It is.
And it's leaders who build the environment where that innovation can happen.
Exactly. The HP way is such a powerful model for how to create that kind of leadership.
That people first leadership.
Right. Empowering people, working together, and fostering a culture of continuous learning.
So if we want more companies creating their own HP Mafia, they need to start looking at their company cultures.
And the leaders they're developing.
But how do we do that? What specific things can companies do to be more like HP?
Well, that's a big question.
It is.
And there's no easy answer. There's no magic formula. But there are some things companies can focus on. Well, first of all, it all starts with the leadership.
Yeah.
The leaders of the company have to actually believe in the values they're trying to promote.
You're saying it can't just be lip service.
Exactly. Employees can tell if someone is being fake.
They can smell it a mile away.
A mile away, yeah. If the leadership team doesn't actually care about collaboration, respect, open communication, all that stuff,
Yeah.
then nothing else matters.
So step one is get your leaders on board.
Exactly. Then you got to create systems and structures to support those values.
Give me an example.
Well, think about what we talked about earlier. HP's open office layout, their management by walking around style.
Yeah.
Those were all carefully considered choices designed to encourage certain behaviors.
So you need to create a space where those values can grow.
Exactly. A whole ecosystem.
What else?
And you have to empower your employees.
Let them take charge.
Right. Remember how we talked about HP's management by objective approach?
I do. They gave people goals and then let them figure out how to achieve them.
Exactly. That's huge for motivating people. It encourages creativity and problem solving,
And it makes people feel like they really own their work.
which they do.
Yeah.
But for that to work, you need trust.
Trust between the leaders and the employees.
You got it. And a lot of companies have a hard time with that.
Why do you think that is?
Well, they want innovation, but they don't want to let go of control.
They want the benefits without the risk.
Exactly. And you can't have both. If you want your people to take risks and be creative,
Yeah.
you have to trust them to do it.
Okay, so strong leadership, supportive structures, and a culture of trust.
That's the trifecta.
Those are all important for companies that want to create the next HP Mafia.
Right.
But what about people like me? I don't work at a place like HP. What can I do to develop those HP way qualities on my own?
Another great question.
I know, I'm on a roll.
You are. I think it starts with having the right mindset.
What do you mean?
Well, you need to be willing to always be learning and growing.
Always be improving.
Always be improving, yes. Be curious, ask questions, look for challenges.
Don't just wait around for someone to tell you what to do.
Exactly. Be proactive. Look for ways to push yourself outside of your comfort zone.
Take ownership.
Take ownership, yeah. And another thing, build relationships.
Okay.
Collaborate.
Be open to different perspectives.
Yes. So even if you aren't lucky enough to work at a place like HP,
Yeah.
you can still develop those values and find other people who believe in them too.
And work together to make great things happen.
Exactly. You could even start the next Mafia.
It's like we've all been inducted into the HP way just by talking about it.
In a way, we have.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into HP's history, I am really struck by the idea of company culture
It is powerful.
and how it is not just about the perks.
It goes much deeper than that,
It's about creating a place where people can do their best work.
where people feel valued and empowered.
Exactly.
It's not something that just happens on its own.
You have to create it.
You have to build it and constantly work on it. HP's story is proof of that.
It really is.
It's a reminder that the best, most impactful companies, the ones we really admire,
Yeah.
they're often the ones with the strongest cultures.
And the strongest values. Well said.
Thank you.
This was a really fascinating deep dive.
I agree.
And I think it's a good reminder for all of us to think about the cultures we're creating.
In our workplaces and in our own lives.
So ask yourself, what impact do you want to make? What will your Mafia be known for?
Great question.
Think about it. Until
Oh,
next
no.
time, keep learning, keep innovating, and keep building something great.